3 turns? What is he talking about? What are we supposed to do? But Hermione was fumbling with her neck of her robes, pulling out beneath from it a very long, very fine gold chain. Harry, come here, she said urgently. Quick! Harry moved toward her, completely bewildered. She was holding out a chain out, and she saw a tiny sparkling hourglass hanging from it. Here! She had thrown her chain around his neck too. Ready? She said breathlessly. What are we doing? Harry said, completely lost. Hermione turned the hourglass 3 times. The dark ward dissolved. Harry had the sensation he was flying very fast backwards. Blur of colors, shapes rushed past him. His ears were pounding, and he tried to yell, but he couldn't hear his own voice. And yet he felt the ground beneath their feet, and everything came into focus again. He was standing next to Hermione in the deserted entrance hall, and the stream of golden sunlight was falling across the paved floor from the open front doors. He looked wildly around at Hermione. The chain of the hourglass was cutting into his neck. Hermione, what the... In here. Hermione seized Harry's arm and dragged him across the hall to the door of the broom closet. She opened it, pushed him inside it, and the buckets and mops and slamming to the floor behind them. What? How? Hermione, what happened? We've gone back in time, Hermione whispered, lifting chain off of Harry's neck into the darkness. 3 hours back. Harry found his own leg and gave it a very hard pinch. It hurt a lot, which seemed to rule out the possibility he was having a bizarre dream. But, shh, listen, someone's coming. I think it might be us. Hermione had her ear pressed against the cupboard door. Footsteps across the hall. Yes, I think it's us going down to the Hagrids. Are you telling me, Harry whispered, that we're here in the cupboard and that we're out here too? Yes, said Hermione, her ear still glued to the cupboard door. I'm sure it's us. It doesn't sound like more than 3 people, and we're walking slowly because we're under the invisibility cloak. She broke off, still listening intently. We've gone now, down the front steps. Hermione sat down on an upturned bucket, looking desperately anxious at Harry, and wanted a few questions answered. Where did you get that hourglass thing? It's called a time turner, Hermione whispered, and I got it from Professor McGonagall on the first day back. I've been using it all year to go to my lessons. Professor McGonagall made me swear I wouldn't tell anyone. She had to write all sorts of letters to the Ministry of Magic so I could have one. She had to tell them that I was a mortal student and that I'd never, ever use it for anything except my studies. I've been turning back into so that I could do hours over again. That's how I've been doing several lessons at once, see? But, Harry, I don't understand what Dumbledore wants us to do. Why did he tell us to go back 3 hours? How's that going to help Sirius? Harry stared at her shadowy face. There must be something that happened around now that he wants us to change, he said slowly. What happened? We're walking down to Hagrid's 3 hours ago. There is 3 hours. We were walking down to Hagrid's, said Hermione. We just heard ourselves leaving. Harry frowned, and he felt as though he was screwing up his whole brain and his concentration. Dumbledore just said we could save more than one innocent life. And then it hit him. Hermione, we're going to save Buckbeak. But how will that help Sirius? Dumbledore said, just told us where the window was, and the window is Flitwick's office. Where there's Sirius is locked up. We've got to fly Buckbeak to the window and rescue Sirius. Sirius can escape with Buckbeak. They can escape together. From what Harry could see, Hermione's face, she looked terrified. If we manage that without being seen, it'll be a miracle. Well, we've got to try, haven't we? Said Harry. He stood up and pressed her ear against the door. Doesn't sound like anyone's there. Come on, let's go. Harry pushed back the door. The entrance hall was deserted. As quietly and as quickly as they could, they darted out of the closet. Down the stone steps, shadows were already lengthening. The tops of the trees in the forbidden forest gilded once more with gold. If anyone's looking out the window, Hermione squeaked, looking up at the castle behind them. We'll run for it, said Harry determinedly. Straight into the forest, all right? Well, we'll have to hide behind a tree or something and keep a lookout. Okay. But we'll go around the greenhouses, said Hermione breathlessly. We need to keep out of sight, Harry. We need to keep out of sight of Hagrid's front door, or he'll see us. We'll see us. We must nearly be at Hagrid's by now. Still working out what she meant, Harry set off in a sprint, Hermione behind him. They strode across the vegetable gardens to the greenhouse, paused for a moment behind them. They set off again, as fast as they could, skirting around the whooping willow, tearing towards the shelter of the forest. Safe in the shadows of the trees, Harry turned around. Seconds later, Hermione arrived beside them, panting. Right, she gasped. We need to sneak over to Hagrid's. Keep out of sight, Harry. They made their way silently through the trees, keeping the very edge of the forest. Then they glimpsed to the front of Hagrid's house, and they heard a knock upon his door. They moved quickly behind a wide oak trunk and peered out at either side. Hagrid had appeared at his doorway, shaking and white, looking around to see who'd knock, and Harry heard his own voice. It's us. We're on the invisibility cloak. Let us in. We can take it off. You shouldn't have come, Hagrid whispered. He stood back, then shut the door quickly. This is the weirdest thing I've ever done, Harry said fervently. Let's move it along a bit, Hermione whispered. We need to get near to Buckbeak. So they creeped up the trees until they saw the nervous hippogriff together at the fence around Harry in the pumpkin patch. Now, Harry whispered. No, Hermione. If we steal him now, the committee will think that Hagrid set him free. We've got to wait until they've seen he's tied outside. That's going to give us about 60 seconds, said Harry. This was starting to seem impossible. At that moment, there was a crash of breaking china from inside Hagrid's cabin. That's Hagrid breaking the milk jug, Hermione whispered. I'm going to find Scabbers in a moment. Sure enough, a few seconds later, he heard Hermione's shriek of surprise. Hermione, said Harry suddenly, what if we just run up there and grab Pettigrew? No, said Hermione in a terrified whisper. Don't you understand? We're breaking one of the most important wizarding laws. Nobody's supposed to change time. Nobody. You heard Dumbledore. If we're seen, we'd only be seen by ourselves and Hagrid. Harry, what do you think you'd do if you saw yourself bursting into Hagrid's house? Said Hermione. I think I'd go mad, said Harry. Or I think there was some dark magic going on. Exactly. You wouldn't understand. You might even attack yourself. Don't you see? Professor McGonagall told me what awful things have happened when wizards have meddled with time. Loads of them end up killing their past or future selves by mistake. Okay, said Harry. It was just an idea. I just thought. But Hermione nudged him and pointed towards the castle. Harry moved his head a few inches in clear view of the distant front doors. Dumbledore, Fudge, an old committee member, and McNair and the executioner were coming down the steps. We're about to come out, Hermione breathed. Sure enough, moments later, Hagrid's back door opened, and he saw Harry saw himself, Ron, and Hermione walking out with Hagrid. It was without a doubt the strangest sensation of his life, standing behind a tree, watching himself in that pumpkin patch. It's okay, Beakies. It's okay, Hagrid said to Buckbeak. Then he turned to Harry and Hermione. Come on, get going. Hagrid, we can't. We'll tell them what's really happened. They can't kill him. Go! It's bad enough that you're all in trouble. Harry watched Hermione in the pumpkin patch throw an invisibility cloak over him and Ron. Quick, go quick. Don't listen. There was a knock at Hagrid's front door. The executioner party had arrived. Hagrid turned around and headed back into his cabin, leaving the back door ajar. Harry watched the grass flatten in patches around the cabin and heard 3 pairs of feet retreating. He, Ron, and Hermione had gone, but Harry and Hermione hidden behind the tree, could now hear what was happening inside the cabin at the back door. "Where's the beast?" came the cold voice of McNair. Outside," Hagrid croaked. Harry pulled his head out of sight of McNair's face, appeared in Hagrid's window, some staring out at Buckbeak. They had heard Fudge. "We'll have to read you the official notice of execution, Hagrid. I'll make it quick, and then you and McNair need to sign it. McNair, you're supposed to listen too. That's procedure." McNair's face vanished from the window. It was now or never. "Wait here," Harry whispered to Hermione. "I'll do it." As Fudge's voices started again, Harry darted from out behind this tree. He vaulted the fence into the pumpkin patch and approached Buckbeak. "It is the decision of the Committee of the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures that the Hippogriff Buckbeak, hereafter called to be condemned, shall be executed on the 6th of June at sundown." Careful not to blink, Harry stared up at Buckbeak's fierce, angry eyes once more and bowed. Buckbeak sank to his scaly knees and then stood up again. Harry began to fumble with the knot of the rope tying Buckbeak to the fence. "Sentenced to execution by beheading, to be carried out by the committee's appointed executioner, Walden McNair." "Come on, Buckbeak," Harry murmured. "Come on. We're going to help you. Quietly, quietly." "As witness below, Hagrid, you sign here." Harry threw all his weight onto the rope, but Buckbeak had dug it into her feet. "Well, let's get this over with," said the ready voice from the committee member inside Hagrid's cabin. "Hagrid, perhaps it would be better if you stay inside." "No, I want to be with him. I don't want him to be alone." Footsteps echoed from within the cabin. "Buckbeak, move," Harry hissed. Harry tugged harder at the rope in Buckbeak's neck. The hippogriff began to walk, rustling wings irritably. They were still 10 feet away from the forest, in plain view of Hagrid's back door. "One moment, please, McNair," said Dumbledore's voice. "You need to sign too." The footsteps stopped. Harry heaved on the rope. Buckbeak snapped his beak and walked a little faster. Hermione's white face sticking out from behind the tree. "Harry, hurry," she mouthed. Harry could still hear Dumbledore's voice talking from within the cabin. He gave the rope another wrench. Buckbeak broke into a grudging trot, and they had reached the trees. "Quick, quick!" Hermione moaned, darting out from behind the tree, seizing the rope too, and adding her weight to make Buckbeak move faster. Harry looked over at his shoulder. They were now blocked from sight. They couldn't see Hagrid's garden at all. "Stop," he whispered to Hermione. "They might hear us." Hagrid's back door opened with a bang. Harry, Hermione, and Buckbeak stood quite still. Even the hippogriff seemed to be listening intently. Silence, then. "Where is it?" said the reedy voice of the committee member. "Where's the beast?" "It was tied here," said the executioner furiously. "I saw it, just here." "How extraordinary," said Dumbledore. There was a note of amusement in his voice. "Beaky!" said Hagrid huskily. There was a swishing noise and a thud of an axe. The executioner seemed to have swung it into the fence in anger. Then came a howling, and this time he could hear Hagrid's words through the sobs. "Gone, gone, bless his little Beaky's gone. Must have pulled himself free. Beaky, you clever boy." Buckbeak started to strain against the rope, trying to get back to Hagrid. Harry and Hermione tightened their grip and dug their heels into the forest floor to stop him. "Someone's untied him," the executioner was snarling. "We should search the grounds, the forest." "McNair, if Buckbeak has indeed been stolen, do you really think the thief would have led him away on foot?" said Dumbledore, still sounding amused. "Search the skies, if you will, Hagrid. All could do with a cup of tea, or a large brandy, maybe." "Oh, of course, Professor Dumbledore," Hagrid, who sounded weak with happiness. Come in, come in." Harry and Hermione listened closely and they heard footsteps of the soft cursing of the executioner, and the snap of the door, and then silence once more. "Now what?" whispered Harry, looking around. We'll have to hide him in here, Hermione said, looking very shaken. We need to wait until they've gone back to the castle. Then we have to wait till it's safe to fly Buckbeak up to Sirius's window. He won't be there for another couple hours. Oh, this is going to be so difficult. She looked nervously over her shoulder into the depths of the forest. The sun was setting now. Oh, we're going to have to move, said Harry, thinking hard. We've got to be able to see the Whomping Willow, or we won't know what's going on. Okay, said Hermione, getting a firmer grip on Buckbeak's rope. But we've got to keep out of sight, Harry, remember. So they moved around to the edge of the forest, darkness falling thickly all around them until they were hidden behind the clump of trees through which they could make out the willow. There's Ron, said Harry suddenly. A dark figure was sprinting across the lawn, and its shouting echoed through the still night of the air. Get away from him! Get away! Scabbers, come here! And then they saw the two more figures materialize out of nowhere. Harry watched himself and Hermione chasing after Ron. Then they saw Ron dive. Gotcha! Get off, you stinking cat! That's Sirius, said Harry. The great shape of the dog had bounded up from the root of the willow. They saw him bowl Harry over and seize Ron. Look, even worse from here, doesn't it? Said Harry, watching the dog pulling Ron into the roots. Ouch! Ooh, look, I just got walloped by the tree. And so did you. This is weird. The Whomping Willow was creaking and latching out. With its lower branches, they could see themselves darting here and there, trying to reach the trunk. And then the tree froze. That was Crookshanks pressing the knot, said Hermione. And there we go, Harry muttered. We're in. The moment they disappeared, the tree began to move again. Seconds later, they heard footsteps quite close by Dumbledore. McNair, Fudge, and the old committee member were making their way up to the castle. Right after we've gone into the passage, said Hermione. If only Dumbledore had come with us. McNair and Fudge would have come too, said Harry bitterly. I bet you anything Fudge would have told McNair to murder Sirius on the spot. They watched the four men climb the castle steps and disappear from view. For a few minutes the scene was deserted. Then, here comes Lupin, said Harry, as they saw another figure sprinting out of the stone steps and hurrying towards the willow. Harry looked up at the sky. Clouds were occurring, and the moon was obscuring the moon completely. They watched Lupin seize a broken branch from the ground and prod the knot of the tree trunk. And then he stopped fighting. The tree stopped fighting, and Lupin too disappeared into the gap with its roots.